This video is being pre-shot for publication on August 9th, 2023 at 8 a.m.
Hi everybody, we're going to conclude the Neil Young Crazy Horse Green Deal review series with a special video about my experiences of meeting Neil and going to the Greendale show on the first leg of the Kansas City of the Greendale tour. I had always been the biggest of Neil fans, as you guys well know. And so when I saw that Neil was going to be coming on the Greendale tour, coming to Starlight, I had asked my mom if we could get tickets, and we did. And then we went to my alma mater, Truman High School, for some reason. And as we were leaving, we ran into a lady that worked for Starlight, and I can't remember if I had written a letter to Neil or Mom had. I think Mom had. And so she or I had written a letter to Neil explaining what a big fan I was. And so she explained to this lady and said, and gave her the letter to pass on to Neil. And so we left and went about our business. And but come August 9th, we were leaving to go to the show, and when we got to the show, they gave us, I don't remember if they sent us our passes or they gave them to us at the show, but so we got our passes, and I was beyond, needless to say, beyond excited. And because up to that point, I had never been backstage at a gig before, and it was kind of uphill from there. Because I have been backstage at several gigs since then. And so, on our way in, we met this very, very, very nice lady. Her name was Kathy Popple, and she was part of a group of fans called Rusties, which are basically Neil's version of Deadheads, and they go to a couple shows on every tour, and they used to go to Bridge School benefits, concerts every year. And so we ran into her, and or I think we ran into her, but no, we ran into her on the way in, and we got to talking, and kind of cemented a friendship that lasted up to her death a couple years ago. And I always think of her, whenever a new Neil release comes out, you know, I always think about calling her because I used to call her, whenever something big would happen in Neil's camp, or when a new Neil release would come out, and we would talk about it. And I miss her to this day. And so anyway, uh, we got to talking, and we went backstage, and the opener was actually Lucinda Williams, and we missed practically all of Lucinda's set because we were backstage with Neil. And one of the most moving experiences for me was meeting all three of Neil's kids, Ben, Amber, and Zeke. And I almost feel a brotherly kinship to Ben and Zeke because the three of us share a commonality in that we have all three of us have varying degrees of cerebral palsy, and so I've always felt kind of like that we're like brothers, even though we're not related by blood. We're related by challenges, and so I've always kind of felt a brotherly love for them, and so it was a very, very moving experience to meet all three of them. And Zeke actually gave me a tour T-shirt off one of the semis. I had already gotten a shirt, but he gave me another one off one of the trucks, and that's the type of person Zeke is. I mean, he is very, very, very gracious, and he cares about people. He's very empathetic, and but yeah, he gave me a tour T-shirt off the trucks, and so every time I look at that shirt, I always think of him. And and he also gave me one of Ralph Molina's drum heads for everybody to sign, and so everybody signed it. The crew members that I met signed it, and Neil signed it, of course. Actually, he wrote "Go Adam" in the center of it, and so every time I jam with Neil and go over to look at that, I always get a big grin on my face. But and I had also brought my copy of Neil's biography, Shaky, by Jimmy McDonough, in hopes of getting it signed, and Pancho, the guitar player from The Horse, signed it because I met 2/3 of Crazy Billy Talented, and they both signed I had gotten my pictures taken with him, and with Billy and Zeke, and they they signed the pictures, but Pancho signed the book because he's featured in there prominently. Um, and actually, on a side note, the author of the book ran afoul of Neil a couple years after that, a couple years ago, and got himself sued for printing inaccuracies, I believe. And when Neil um, came out to meet me, I was somewhat embarrassed because I said a couple expletives, when I got to finally meet him. But he and Peggy were extremely nice and very forgiving because I think they knew what a big deal this was for me. But it still mortifies me to this day that I did that in front of them. Um, and when um, and when I met Peggy, she gave me a hug, and I felt that I had been knighted by the Queen. And and when I calmed down enough to talk coherently to Neil, I requested a couple songs, and I said, "Is there any way that you could play that I could request a couple songs?" And he said, "Sure." So I requested "Don't Cry No Tears" from Zuma and "Country Home" from Ragagoy, and actually, when I was in high school, one of my good friends that was also my English teacher at the time, and I used to jam to "Don't Cry No Tears" because he was a musician, and sometimes he would bring his guitar in and we would jam. And that was always one of the songs we would jam to, and so I kind of requested it for him too, because I knew he was in the audience, I think, and because I knew that was from one of his favorite records, Zuma. And so, in Wonders of All Wonders, Neil played them both, and it was amazing. And another point is that I also met one of Neil's producers, the producer that worked with Neil on all his film projects, L.A. Johnson, and he said, he and I were talking, and he said, "Now, Adam, I don't want to see any of this on eBay." And I told him, of course, I wouldn't put it on eBay. And actually, I think he was wearing his Russ Never Sleeps backstage pass um, or tour pass from the '78 tour. So every time I see LA's name or see or watch Russ Never Sleeps, I always think of LA because he's no longer here. He died of a heart attack a couple years ago, back in 2010, I believe. And so I always think of him whenever I see his name or watch a movie watch a concert film that he was involved in or production-wise. And when I and when we got back to our seats, I at some point I um, I made my way down front to to the front of the stage. I think when Neil played "Don't Cry No Tears" in Country Home for me, and he was pointing right at me, and that I felt like I was floating. I mean, I was touching the stage and feeling the vibrations from the music, and so it was awesome. And actually, on our way back to the seats, I was moved to tears, and actually, a couple of my friends said, that were there, said, "Are you okay?" And of course I was, but it was a very moving experience. Oh, and Zeke actually gave me a pair of Ralph's drumsticks that he used, and some guy that was in some stage of inebriation, I believe, started to grab for him, and Zeke pointed at me and said, "No, these are for him." And so that I always remember that day too, that part too, and with fondness and affection. And so, oh, and by the way, I have put a picture of the set list from the show, and I marked which songs I requested, and I will actually put an arrow so you can see where they are on the set list, and I had already marked requested by me. And so I hope you have enjoyed the Greendale series. Coming up in a couple weeks, though, we will be doing another Neil series. This time, we will be doing a series of reviews on the This Note's For You album, which will be a two-part series. Starting with our look at the This Note's For You album, and then we will be concluding the series with our look at the live album from that tour, Blue Note Cafe, and also coming up tomorrow, we will be concluding the week of reviews with our look at the Fresh Air interview that Peggy gave to Terry Gross in promotion for her debut album, which came out in 2007. Which, as you recall, we reviewed a long time ago. So that's coming up tomorrow. I wanted to add a special thank you to everybody involved in making this the summer of my life.